The debris floated in the darkness like broken dreams. Ambassador Day-Wan stood at the window of his diplomatic ship, staring at the wreckage. Twisted metal, shattered glass, the remains of what was once a mighty Vracath colony ship called Vengeance of Flame. Now it was nothing but garbage spinning slowly in the empty space near a dead moon. Day-Wan was tired. He had seen too many ships like this. Too many bodies. Too many wars. At 48 years old, his hair was turning gray at the temples. His hands bore scars from the Epsilon Wars, conflicts that had killed millions. He had hoped those days were behind him, but the galaxy never really stopped fighting. His crew worked quietly around him. They were searching for survivors. The distress beacon had been weak but clear. Someone might still be alive in that wreckage. Day-Wan had learned long ago that even the smallest hope was worth investigating. His daughter Ji-Wan had taught him that before she died. She always said that saving one life mattered, even when the universe felt too big and cruel. The communications officer, a young woman named Bo-Ra, turned in her chair. Her face was pale. Ambassador, the scans show no life signs. The Vracath and Thelian ships destroyed each other completely. Both sides lost everyone. She paused, her voice dropping. We should leave before someone blames us for being here. Day-Wan nodded slowly. She was right. Being found near a battle site between two alien species could cause problems. Earth was still new to galactic politics. Humans had only joined the Galactic Assembly 20 years ago. Many species still did not trust them. The Vracath in particular viewed humans as weak, soft creatures who talked too much and fought too little. The Vracath were apex predators. They stood over 7 feet tall, covered in obsidian black scales that gleamed like polished stone. Their eyes glowed with bioluminescent patterns when they fought. They were warriors from birth, trained to kill before they could read. The galaxy feared them. The galaxy respected them. Humans were neither feared nor respected in the same way. Start the engines, Day-Wan said. We will leave in 5 minutes. That was when he heard it. A sound so faint he almost missed it. A whimper, high-pitched, desperate, coming through the ship's external audio sensors. Day-Wan froze. Bo-Ra, scan Sector 7 again. Focus on survival pods. Bo-Ra's fingers flew across her console. Her eyes widened. Ambassador, there is something. A small pod? The signal is very weak. It is almost dead. How small? Day-Wan asked. The pod is designed for a child, maybe even an infant. The bridge went silent. Everyone knew what this meant. The Vracath did not save their weak. If a child was left in that pod, it was because the Vracath had abandoned it. They believed in strength above all else. Weakness was death. A deformed child, a sick child, or even a child born at the wrong time would be left behind. It was their way. Sir, Bo-Ra said carefully, Earth Command will not approve this. Interfering with Vracath culture could create a diplomatic incident. The treaty clearly states we cannot take their people without permission. Day-Wan stared at the wreckage. He thought about his daughter, about the promise he made at her grave, about the kind of man he wanted to be versus the kind of diplomat the galaxy expected him to be. Bring the pod aboard, he said quietly. That is an order. The crew hesitated. Then they moved. They were loyal to Day-Wan. He had saved many of them during the wars. They trusted his judgment even when they questioned his choices. 20 minutes later, the pod sat in the medical bay. It was small, barely 3 feet long, black metal covered in scorch marks. The locking mechanism had failed, probably damaged in the battle. Dr. Hana, the ship's xenobiologist, carefully opened it with her tools. Inside lay a creature that made everyone step back. A Vracath hatchling. Its scales were dull gray instead of the glossy black of healthy Vracath. Its body was thin, starved, small enough to fit in Day-Wan's arms. It looked up at them with eyes that glowed faintly, a weak orange light instead of the fierce red of adult Vracath. The creature made that whimpering sound again. Dr. Hana scanned it quickly. She was in her late 30s, brilliant and calm under pressure. Her hands moved with practiced efficiency. Male hatchling, approximately 3 months old. Severe malnutrition, dehydration, temperature regulation failing. She paused, reading more data. There are genetic markers here. Minor deformities in the vocal cords, nothing that would affect survival. But the Vracath consider such things unacceptable. This child was rejected at birth. Can you save it? Day-Wan asked. Hana looked at him with sharp eyes. I can try, but you understand what you are doing? This is not like rescuing a human child. The Vraketh will demand him back. They will call this theft. The entire Galactic Assembly will turn against Earth. Daewon reached into the pod. The hatchling flinched, expecting pain. But Daewon moved slowly, gently. He wrapped the small creature in his jacket. The same jacket he wore when his daughter was small. The hatchling's scales felt rough and cold. Its body trembled. They threw him away, Daewon said softly. They left him to die in the cold and dark. How can they demand back something they discarded like garbage? Hana had no answer. She began preparing nutrients, temperature controls, and medicine. The work would be difficult. Vraketh biology was different from human biology, but she would do her best. Daewon sat in a chair holding the hatchling. The creature's whimpering slowly faded. Its eyes, those weak orange lights, focused on his face. Something passed between them. Understanding, perhaps, or simply the recognition of safety after knowing only abandonment. You need a name, Daewon whispered. He thought about it for a long moment. Taeyang. It means sun, because you will bring light even when the galaxy turns dark. The hatchling Taeyang made a small sound. Not quite a purr, not quite a chirp. Then, exhausted and finally warm, he closed his eyes and fell asleep against Daewon's chest. Around them, the crew stood silent. They all knew their lives had just changed. Bora was already typing a report to Earth Command. The response would come within hours. It would not be kind, but none of that mattered in this moment. In this moment, a child who should have died was breathing. A child who was thrown away was being held. Dr. Hana looked at Daewon and the sleeping hatchling. She saw the determination in the ambassador's eyes. She had worked with him for 5 years. She knew that look. It meant he would not back down. Not for Earth Command. Not for the Galactic Assembly. Not for the entire Vraketh Empire. We are going to have a very difficult time ahead, she said quietly. Daewon nodded. His hand rested gently on Taeyang's back, feeling the slow rhythm of breathing. Yes, but some things are worth fighting for. Some things are worth standing alone against the entire galaxy. The ship turned away from the debris field. Behind them, the wreckage of Vengeance of Flame continued its slow spin through the darkness. Ahead lay Earth, the Galactic Assembly, and a future no one could predict. But in Daewon's arms, a small life that should have ended had been given a second chance, and that, he believed, was worth any price the galaxy demanded. The news exploded across the galaxy like a supernova. Within 6 hours of Daewon's ship docking at Earth, every major news network was broadcasting the story. A human diplomat had rescued a Vraketh hatchling. The images spread through 1,000 worlds. Daewon carrying the small creature. Dr. Hana treating it in the medical bay. The child, Taeyang, wrapped in a human jacket. The reactions came fast and angry. The Galactic Assembly chamber on Concordia Prime Station became a storm of voices. Ambassador Krial of the Vraketh Empire stood at the central podium, towering over the other delegates. Krial was massive even for a Vraketh, nearly 8 feet tall with scales that gleamed like polished obsidian. Battle scars crossed the warrior's face, telling stories of 100 victories. The hatchling belongs to the Vraketh Empire. Krial's voice boomed through the chamber. Return it immediately. This is not negotiable. This is theft of imperial property. Other species joined the outcry. The Thelian delegate, a bird-like creature with silver feathers, spoke with a sharp voice. The Treaty of Species Sovereignty is clear. No species may adopt the young of another species without explicit permission. The humans have violated galactic law. The Gorvan representative, speaking through a translator device, added more weight. This sets a dangerous precedent. Today it is a Vraketh child. Tomorrow any species could claim the right to take our young. This cannot stand. On Earth, the situation was equally chaotic. The United Earth Council met in emergency session. The large conference room was filled with shouting voices. Some council members supported Daewon. Others wanted him arrested for endangering the entire planet. Ambassador Il-sung stood at the front of the room, his face red with anger. Il-sung was younger than Daewon, ambitious and practical. He believed in protecting Earth's interests above all else. Right now, Earth's interests seemed very clear to him. Daewon has put us all at risk, Il-sung declared. The Vraketh Empire has the most powerful military in the galaxy. They could destroy Earth if they wanted. And we are arguing about keeping one alien child? This is madness! Counselor Misun, an older woman with kind eyes, stood to respond. The child was abandoned, left to die. How can the Vraketh claim ownership of something they threw away like garbage? That is their culture, Il-sung shot back. We do not have the right to judge them. We are the newest species in the assembly. We have no power, no allies. If we fight this battle, we will lose everything. The arguments went on for hours. Meanwhile, in a secure medical facility beneath Geneva, Daiwan and Dr. Hana worked to save Taeyang's life. The hatchling was weak but responding to treatment. Hana had spent 12 hours researching Vreketh biology, adapting human medical equipment to work with alien physiology. Taeyang lay in a specialized incubator that maintained the precise temperature Vreketh infants needed. The child's scales were starting to darken slightly, a sign of improving health. Every few hours, Taeyang would wake and make small sounds. Not quite words, but something close. Hana had discovered that Vreketh hatchlings learned language incredibly fast, much faster than human babies. Daewon sat beside the incubator, watching the small creature breathe. He had not slept in 36 hours. His mind kept returning to his daughter, Ji-won. She had died in a medical transport accident 5 years ago. She was only 16. After her death, he had made a promise at her grave. He promised that he would always stand up for those who could not stand up for themselves. Ji-won had believed in helping others even when it was hard. Especially when it was hard. Dr. Hana brought him coffee. She looked as tired as he felt. Earth Command has sent 7 messages demanding we surrender the child. The Galactic Assembly has issued an ultimatum. We have 30 days to return Taeyang to the Vreketh Empire or face sanctions. Sanctions? Daewon asked. Economic blockade? No trade with any assembly species. It would cripple Earth's economy within months. We rely on trade for rare metals, medicines, technology. Without it, people will suffer. Daewon looked at Taeyang. The hatchling's eyes were closed, chest rising and falling steadily. So small, so helpless. They want me to give him back so they can let him die properly, Daewon said quietly. That is what this is about. Not law, not sovereignty. They are embarrassed that I saved a child they deemed unworthy of life. Hana sat down beside him. She had been divorced for 3 years and had no children of her own. Her work was her life. But something about Taeyang had touched her deeply. Perhaps it was the scientific challenge. Perhaps it was simple compassion. She did not analyze it too carefully. What are you going to do? She asked. I am going to refuse, Daewon said. I will speak to the assembly in 3 days. I will tell them that humanity will not surrender a child to die. If that means we stand alone, then we stand alone. Hana nodded slowly. You know they will try to remove you from your position. Il-sung has enough support on the council to force a vote. Let them try, Daewon replied. Some things matter more than a career. The next 3 days felt like 3 years. Protests erupted across Earth. Some people marched in support of Daewon, carrying signs that said things like, Save the child and all life matters. Others protested against him, their signs reading, Protect Earth first and do not risk war for an alien. The planet was divided. News networks ran endless debates. Scientists argued about Vreketh biology. Lawyers argued about treaty interpretation. Religious leaders argued about moral obligations. Everyone had an opinion. No one had an easy answer. On the day of the assembly meeting, Daewon dressed in his formal diplomatic uniform, dark blue with silver trim, medals from the Epsilon Wars on his chest. He looked at himself in the mirror and barely recognized the man staring back. He looked older, harder, but also more certain than he had felt in years. The assembly chamber was packed. Representatives from 200 species filled the seats. Cameras from 1,000 worlds broadcast the event. Daewon stood at the human delegation podium alone. Earth had sent only him. Il-sung had refused to attend, a clear message that he did not support this action. Krial spoke first. The Vreketh ambassador's voice filled the chamber like thunder. Ambassador Daewon, you have violated our sovereignty. You have stolen our property. You have 30 days to return the hatchling. This is your final warning, Daewon stood. The chamber fell silent. He could feel the weight of billions of eyes watching him. He thought about Ji-won, about the promise, about the small creature fighting for life in a medical bay on Earth. Ambassador Kriel, Daewon began, his voice steady. I found that child in the wreckage of your colony ship. He was sealed in a pod designed to keep him alive just long enough to die slowly. Your people abandoned him because of minor vocal deformities, not because he was sick, not because he was dying, because he was not perfect. Murmurs rippled through the chamber. Daewon continued. You call this theft. I call it rescue. You call him property. I call him a child. A living being with the right to survive. Humanity may be new to this assembly. We may be weak in your eyes. But we have principles. One of those principles is simple. We do not abandon children to die in the dark. Krial's scales flashed red with anger. You dare lecture the Vrakith Empire on strength? On survival? Your species knows nothing of what it takes to forge warriors. To maintain an empire, weakness must be removed or it spreads. Then we disagree on the definition of strength, Daewon said. I believe true strength is protecting the vulnerable. True power is choosing mercy when you have the ability to destroy. And true courage is standing for what is right, even when the entire galaxy tells you that you are wrong. He paused, looking around the chamber at all the different species. Humanity will not surrender Taeyang. We will raise him. We will protect him. And if that means we face sanctions, then so be it. If that means we stand alone, then we have stood against worse odds before. This is not negotiable. This is who we are. The chamber erupted into chaos. Some species cheered, others booed. Krial slammed a massive fist on the podium, cracking the stone. The assembly chairman called for order, but it took 10 minutes to restore quiet. When Daewon returned to Earth, he knew everything had changed. The galaxy was watching. The Vrakith Empire was furious, and somewhere in a medical facility, a small hatchling named Taeyang slept, unaware that his existence had just started a conflict that would test humanity's resolve like never before. 2 years passed like a storm that never quite ended. The Galactic Assembly had imposed sanctions on Earth just as threatened. Trade routes closed. Supply shipments stopped. Rare metals needed for advanced technology became nearly impossible to obtain. Medicine prices tripled. Some space stations had to ration power. The economic pressure was real and painful. But humanity adapted. They always did. When the galaxy closed its doors, humans found other ways. They developed new technologies using only materials found on Earth and its colonies. They traded favors with smaller species who quietly ignored the sanctions. Black markets flourished. It was not easy, but humans had survived worse. They survived ice ages, world wars, and planetary plagues. A trade embargo was just another challenge. In a quiet neighborhood in Geneva, Taeyang was growing up. The Vrakith child developed frighteningly fast. At 2 years old, Taeyang stood 4 feet tall and had the intelligence of a human 7-year-old. Vrakith biology accelerated everything. Their bodies grew rapidly to reach combat readiness. Their minds absorbed information like sponges. Evolution had made them perfect predators. Taeyang's scales had darkened to a healthy obsidian black, though they still lacked the bioluminescent patterns that adult Vrakith developed. The vocal deformities that had caused the original rejection were barely noticeable. Just a slight rasp when the child spoke, like someone recovering from a cold, hardly worth abandoning a life over. Dr. Hana had become more than a doctor. She was a mother now, though she had never planned for it. Every day she documented Taeyang's development in careful journals. Physical growth, cognitive abilities, emotional responses, social behavior. The data was fascinating. It was also heartbreaking. Taeyang struggled with identity in ways that broke Hana's heart. The child was too Vrakith for humans and too human for Vrakith. When Taeyang looked in mirrors, confusion clouded those orange eyes. The body was alien. The mind was shaped by human culture. Where did one end and the other begin? School was especially difficult. Daewon and Hana had enrolled Taeyang in a private academy that specialized in educating alien children living on Earth. But there were no other Vrakith. Taeyang was unique. The other children stared. Some were fascinated. Some were afraid. Some were cruel in the way children can be without understanding the weight of their words. One afternoon, Hana received a call from the principal. There had been an incident. She arrived at the school to find Taeyang sitting alone in an office looking at the floor. The child's scales had flushed dark gray, a sign of distress in Vrakith. What happened? Hana asked gently, kneeling beside the chair. Taeyang did not look up. Some older children were saying things. They called me monster. They said my real parents threw me away because I was broken. They said humans only kept me as a pet. Hana's heart clenched. And what did you do? I wanted to hurt them, Taeyang admitted quietly. I could feel it inside me. The anger. Like fire in my chest. I wanted to show them I was not weak. I wanted to make them afraid. The child finally looked up, eyes filled with shame. But you and father taught me that hurting others does not make the pain stop. So I just walked away. But it hurts, Mother. It hurts to walk away. Hana pulled Taiyang into a hug. The child was already bigger than her, scales rough against her arms, but still so young. Still so vulnerable despite the predator's body. I am proud of you, she whispered. Walking away when you want to fight is harder than fighting. That takes real strength. The Vracath would say I am weak, Taiyang said. The Vracath are wrong about many things, Hana replied. The bullying continued, though less openly. Other parents complained to the school about having a Vracath child in classes with their sons and daughters. They worried about safety. What if Taiyang lost control? What if those predator instincts took over? The principal, a kind man named Director Wo Jin, defended Taiyang. But the pressure was constant. The assassination attempts came regularly. Some were sophisticated operations by Vracath special forces. Others were crude attacks by extremist groups who believed Taiyang's existence was an insult to the natural order. Captain Byung-ho and his security team stopped them all, but it was exhausting work. Byung-ho had initially opposed keeping Taiyang. He was Daewon's oldest friend from military service, and he believed the strategic risks were too high. But time changed his mind. Watching Taiyang struggle to fit in, watching the child practice writing with clumsy clawed hands designed for combat, not holding pens, watching Taiyang laugh at human jokes and cry at sad movies, Byung-ho could not see a weapon anymore. He saw a kid. One night, another attack came. 3 Vracath infiltrators breached the compound security. They were professionals, trained killers. Byung-ho's team engaged them in the outer courtyard, but one got through. The assassin reached the residence where Daewon and Hana lived with Taiyang. Alarms screamed. Taiyang woke to find a massive Vracath warrior standing in the bedroom doorway. The assassin's scales glowed red with combat markings. A blade gleamed in one hand. This was what Taiyang would have become in the Empire. A killer, a weapon, nothing more. The assassin spoke in the Vracath language, harsh and guttural. You are an abomination. A disgrace to our species. You should have died in that pod. Taiyang stood up slowly. At 6 years old, the child was already 5 feet tall and deceptively strong. Vracath instincts flared to life. Every muscle tensed. Claws extended. The predator inside recognized the threat and prepared to fight. But then something unexpected happened. 3 human children from the school came running down the hallway. They had been at a sleepover, a human custom that Taiyang enjoyed. Seeing the assassin, they froze in terror. The assassin turned toward them, calculating. Witnesses, complications, easy targets. Taiyang moved without thinking, not to attack the assassin, to protect the children. The child put that armored body between the killer and the small humans, spreading arms wide. A living shield. Run, Taiyang said to the children. Go, now. The assassin laughed, a harsh sound. You protect them. They are not your kind. They will never truly accept you. They are my friends, Taiyang said simply, and I will not let you hurt them. What happened next became famous. Security cameras captured everything. The assassin attacked. Taiyang fought back, but not with killing intent. Every move was defensive, blocking, redirecting, absorbing blows meant to kill. The child's Vracath body was strong enough to survive the assault. The human-taught mind was wise enough to fight without becoming a murderer. When Byung-ho's team arrived 30 seconds later, they found the assassin unconscious and Taiyang standing guard over the frightened children. Scales cracked and bleeding, but alive. The video went viral across the galaxy. Billions watched a Vracath child choose protection over violence. Defense over attack, compassion over instinct. The footage showed something the galaxy had never seen before. A Vracath fighting not to destroy but to preserve. Public opinion began to shift. Slowly, carefully. Species that had supported the sanctions started questioning them. If a Vracath child raised by humans could show such restraint, such ethics, what did that say about nature versus nurture? What did that say about the rigid hierarchies the galaxy had accepted for so long? That night, as Dr. Hana bandaged Taiyang's wounds, Daewon sat beside them. The child looked exhausted but peaceful. The 3 human children had hugged Taiyang before leaving, no longer afraid. Just grateful. Why did my real family throw me away? Taiyang asked suddenly. It was not the first time the child had asked this question. It would not be the last. Daewon chose his words carefully. They were afraid. They believed that anything different was dangerous. They could not see that different can also mean special. Do you think they ever wonder what happened to me? Taiyang asked. I do not know, Daewon answered honestly. But I know this. Family is not who shares your blood. Family is who stands beside you when the world turns dark, who teaches you, who protects you, who loves you even when loving you is difficult. Hana and I, we are your family, and we will never throw you away. Taeyang leaned against Daewon, careful of the wounds. I am glad you found me, the child whispered. So are we, Hana said softly, her hand resting on Taeyang's scaled shoulder. So are we. Outside, the galaxy continued its debates. The sanctions remained in place. The Vreketh Empire still demanded Taeyang's return, but something had changed. A crack had appeared in the wall of certainty, and through that crack light was starting to shine. 5 years after the rescue, Taeyang stood 6 feet tall at age 7. The child's body had become powerful, muscled in ways that made security teams nervous. Scales now bore faint patterns that would eventually glow with bioluminescence, claws sharp enough to cut steel, reflexes faster than human eyes could track. Every inch of Vreketh warrior in physical form. But the mind behind those predator eyes was different from any Vreketh the galaxy had known. Taeyang read philosophy books, played chess with Daewon every evening, volunteered at animal shelters, wrote poetry that made Hana cry. The child existed between two worlds, fully belonging to neither, somehow becoming something entirely new. The attacks had intensified. A coalition of radical species calling themselves the Purity Front had formed. They believed that mixing species through adoption would destroy the natural order. They saw Taeyang as an abomination that must be eliminated. Their assassination attempts became more sophisticated, more deadly. Captain Byung-ho had transformed Daewon's residence into a fortress. Guard rotations, surveillance systems, automated defenses. He also started training Taeyang in advanced combat techniques. Not to create a weapon, Byung-ho insisted, but to ensure survival. The training sessions took place in a secure facility beneath the Geneva compound. Byung-ho, despite his prosthetic arm, was still one of the deadliest fighters humanity had produced. He taught Taeyang not just how to fight, but when to fight. More importantly, when not to fight. You are stronger than almost any human, Byung-ho said during one session. Faster, more dangerous. That means you must be more careful. Power without control is just destruction. Taeyang practiced restraint as much as technique. How to disable without killing. How to defend without maiming. How to stop a threat while preserving life. It was harder than simple violence. Much harder. Then came the formal challenge. The Galactic Assembly, pressured by both the Vreketh Empire and the Purity Front, announced a special tribunal. Humanity itself would be put on trial. The charge was creating a dangerous hybrid, a being with neither the discipline of Vreketh training nor the limitations of human physicality. A threat to galactic stability. Ambassador Il-sung visited Daewon the night before the tribunal. Il-sung had spent 5 years opposing Taeyang's presence on Earth. Now he stood in Daewon's study, looking older and tired. You should surrender the child, Il-sung said without preamble. The tribunal is designed to rule against us. If we lose, the consequences will be severe. The assembly could expel humanity entirely. Everything we have built in 20 years gone. Daewon poured tea, his movements calm. We will not lose. You cannot know that, Il-sung protested. I know, Taeyang, Daewon replied. I know what we have accomplished. The galaxy will see it too. Il-sung shook his head. You are gambling with humanity's future for one child. How is that responsible leadership? Leadership is not always about safety, Daewon said quietly. Sometimes it is about standing for principles even when standing is dangerous. If we surrender Taeyang now, what message does that send? That humans only have principles when those principles are convenient. The tribunal took place on Concordia Prime Station, the massive structure that served as the Assembly's headquarters. The chamber was filled beyond capacity. Representatives from 200 species. Journalists from 1,000 worlds. The galaxy was watching. The prosecution presented first. A Thelian lawyer named Shrikala spoke for 3 hours, detailing every danger Taeyang represented. The child's physical capabilities, the lack of traditional Vreketh discipline, the potential for violence, the violation of established treaties. The evidence was damning when presented a certain way. Then Dr. Hana took the stand. She had prepared for months, compiling years of research into a comprehensive presentation. She spoke clearly and confidently, a scientist presenting data. I have documented every aspect of Tai Yang's development. Hana began. Physical, cognitive, emotional, social. The data shows something remarkable. Traditional Vraketh training creates efficient warriors, but suppresses emotional development and individual thinking. The training begins at birth and uses pain, isolation, and fear as primary tools. She displayed graphs and charts, videos of Tai Yang's interactions with others, test results showing cognitive abilities and emotional intelligence. The data told a story that contradicted the prosecution's narrative. Tai Yang exhibits lower aggression than traditionally raised Vraketh, Hana continued. Higher empathy, greater ethical reasoning, better impulse control. The child has all the physical capabilities of a Vraketh warrior, but possesses something else. A conscience, the ability to choose mercy, the capacity for compassion. Ambassador Krial of the Vraketh Empire stood abruptly. You dare criticize our methods? Our culture has produced the greatest warriors in galactic history. And what has that cost you? Hana asked quietly. How many children die in your training programs? How many are discarded as unworthy? How many warriors live with trauma that never heals? You produce efficient killers, Ambassador. But are they happy? Are they fulfilled? Do they know love? The chamber fell silent. These were questions no one had asked before. Not openly, not directly. The Vraketh were feared. The Vraketh were respected. But were they examined? Were they questioned? Then came the moment that changed everything. Tai Yang took the stand. The child walked to the center of the chamber, scales gleaming under the lights. 6 feet of predator wrapped in a simple human-style suit. Tai Yang looked around at all the species staring back. So much judgment. So much fear. So much curiosity. My name is Tai Yang, the child began, voice carrying easily through the chamber. It means sun. My human father gave me that name because he said I would bring light to darkness. I do not know if I have succeeded, but I have tried. Tai Yang paused, gathering thoughts. You ask if I am dangerous? Yes, my body is built for combat. My instincts tell me to fight when threatened. My species evolved as apex predators, but danger and violence are not the same thing. I am dangerous like a fire is dangerous. Fire can destroy, but it can also warm and illuminate. The difference is control, choice, the child continued. You say I belong to neither species. You are correct. I am not fully Vraketh. I am not fully human. I am something between. Something new. And I do not apologize for that. The galaxy has spent so long keeping species separate that you have forgotten something important. We can learn from each other. We can become better by sharing knowledge, culture, and love. Tai Yang looked directly at Ambassador Krial. My biological family abandoned me because I was not perfect by their standards. My human family rescued me because they believed all life has value. They taught me that strength is not just physical power. Strength is choosing compassion when you have the ability to destroy. Strength is protecting the vulnerable instead of exploiting them. Strength is standing for what is right even when you stand alone. The child's voice grew stronger. You fear me because you cannot categorize me. I understand that. Fear of the unknown is natural. But fear should not control policy. Fear should not determine the future. I exist, I am here, and I represent a possibility that terrifies those who benefit from keeping species separate and unequal. The possibility that we can be more together than we are apart. Tai Yang fell silent. The chamber remained quiet for a long moment. Then something unexpected happened. A junior delegate from a small species called the Rhinoth stood and began to clap. Slowly at first. Then others joined. Not everyone. Not even most, but enough to matter. The tribunal deliberated for 6 hours. When they returned, the lead magistrate announced the verdict. By the narrowest possible margin, humanity's right to raise Tai Yang was upheld. The child would remain on Earth, but the victory came with a cost. The Vraketh Empire, furious at the decision, formally severed diplomatic relations with humanity and the assembly species that supported the verdict. They placed a formal bounty on Tai Yang's head, 1 million credits to whoever delivered the child to Vraketh territory. That night, as they returned to Earth, Tai Yang sat between Daiwan and Hana on the transport ship. The child looked tired but peaceful. Did I do well? Tai Yang asked. You were magnificent, Hana said, squeezing the child's clawed hand. But the Vraketh still want me dead, Tai Yang observed. The fight is not over. No, Daiwan agreed. The fight is not over. But we won something important today. We proved that change is possible, that the galaxy can question its assumptions. That is worth fighting for. Taeyang leaned against Daewon, careful of his strength. Thank you for not giving up on me. Never, Daewon whispered. We will never give up on you. Outside the ship's windows, stars streamed past. Somewhere out there, forces were gathering. The Vraketh bounty would attract mercenaries, assassins, and zealots. The Purity Front would intensify their efforts. The galaxy was far from accepting what Taeyang represented, but something had shifted. A door had opened, and through that door a new future was becoming visible, a future where species did not have to remain isolated, where nature and nurture could coexist, where a predator's child could be raised to be fierce not in cruelty but in compassion. The intelligence report landed on Captain Byung-ho's desk at 3 a.m. He was already awake, reviewing security protocols for the upcoming Galactic Peace Summit. The summit would bring together ambassadors from every major species to discuss trade agreements and territorial disputes. It would also be the perfect opportunity for an attack. Byung-ho read the report twice, his blood turning cold. The information came from multiple sources, all pointing to the same conclusion. The Purity Front had formed an alliance with rogue elements of the Vraketh military. They were planning something far worse than simple assassination. They intended to frame humanity for a false flag attack that would justify a full military assault on Earth. The plan was horrifyingly simple. During the peace summit, operatives would kill key ambassadors while simultaneously killing Taeyang. The evidence would be planted to suggest that humanity orchestrated the attacks to eliminate opposition. The Vraketh Empire would have their justification for war. Other species would support them. Earth would face extermination. Byung-ho called an emergency meeting. Daewon Hana and his top security team gathered in the secure conference room. The captain laid out the intelligence, watching their faces grow grim as they understood the implications. How reliable is this information? Daewon asked. Very, Byung-ho replied. It comes from someone inside the Vraketh government. Someone who wants to prevent this war. Who? Hana asked. Byung-ho hesitated. Ambassador Krial. Silence fell over the room. Krial had been their primary opponent in the assembly, the Vraketh warrior who demanded Taeyang's return. The ambassador who walked out of the tribunal in protest. Now Krial was providing intelligence to prevent a conspiracy against humanity. I do not understand, Daewon said carefully. Krial has fought us at every turn. Why help us now? Because Krial has been watching, Byung-ho explained. The ambassador has been secretly documenting Vraketh training methods for years. Krial lost a son to the training programs. The boy was deemed unworthy and killed during a ritual combat at age 6. Krial followed orders then, believed in the system. But watching Taeyang thrive while remembering that dead child changed something. Byung-ho pulled up another file. Krial has compiled decades of evidence showing the brutality of Vraketh culture. The children who die in training. The psychological damage. The suppression of emotion and individual thought. The ambassador believes the entire Vraketh social structure is fundamentally broken and wants to change it, but the empire will never reform from within, not unless something forces the issue. So Krial is using us, Daewon observed. Helping humanity exposes the conspiracy. Exposing the conspiracy might trigger reform in the Vraketh Empire. Perhaps, Byung-ho agreed, but Krial is also risking everything. If the Vraketh government discovers this betrayal, the punishment is execution. Not quick death. Public dismemberment that takes days. Krial knows the cost and is helping anyway. Hana studied the intelligence reports. The summit is in 2 weeks. They plan to attack during the opening ceremony, when security will be focused on protecting the main assembly hall. They will hit secondary locations where lower-ranked diplomats gather. Taeyang will be there because you insisted on the child attending as a symbol of human values. So we do not go, Daewon said. We skip the summit. Keep Taeyang on Earth where security is strongest. That will not work, Byung-ho replied. If we do not show, they will adapt the plan. Attack Earth directly, or wait until another opportunity. The conspiracy is too large, too well funded. They will keep trying until they succeed. We need to expose them publicly, with irrefutable evidence, or this will never end. Daewon looked at Byung-ho with tired eyes. You have a plan. A dangerous one, the captain admitted. We go to the summit. We let them attack. But we are ready. We document everything. Record the assault. Capture the attackers. Gather evidence that proves the conspiracy. Then we broadcast it to every species in the galaxy before they can spin the narrative. You want to use Tai Yang as bait? Hana said, anger creeping into her voice. You want to put our child in the middle of an assassination attempt and hope we can stop it in time. I want to end this threat permanently, Byung-ho countered. If we run, if we hide, they win. They will keep coming. Taeyang will spend a lifetime looking over their shoulder, waiting for the knife in the dark. This way we expose the truth. We remove their justification for war. We force the galaxy to confront what is really happening. Before anyone could respond, the door opened. Taeyang walked in, now 8 years old and standing 6.5 feet tall. The child's scales had fully developed their bioluminescent patterns, though they remained dim most of the time. Only in moments of strong emotion did they glow. I could hear you from my room, Taeyang said quietly. The walls are not as thick as you think. Daewon started to speak, but Taeyang raised a clawed hand. I know what you are planning. I know the danger. And I agree with Captain Byung-ho. We cannot run forever. If there is a way to end this, we should take it. You are 8 years old, Hana protested. You should not have to make decisions like this. I am 8 years old chronologically, Taeyang replied. But my body is nearly full grown. My mind has been shaped by years of threat and conflict. I stopped being a normal child the moment I was abandoned in that pod. We all know this. Pretending otherwise does not change reality. The child sat down at the table, moving with the fluid grace that came naturally to Vraketh. They want to kill me because I represent something they fear. Change. The possibility that their rigid hierarchies are wrong, that their brutal methods are unnecessary. If my existence, my survival, my very life can prove that, then it is worth the risk. Daewon looked at the child he had raised. When had Taeyang become so mature? So thoughtful? It felt like yesterday that he was holding a whimpering hatchling, promising it would be safe. Now that hatchling was speaking about sacrifice and purpose with the wisdom of someone much older. You understand what could happen? Daewon asked. These are trained killers, professionals. Even with preparation, we might not stop them all. You could die. I could die tomorrow from a random attack, Taeyang pointed out. I could die next year or the year after. The bounty on my head will not disappear. The hatred will not fade unless we confront it directly. At least this way we choose the battlefield. We control some variables. Hana wiped her eyes. She had not cried in years, trained herself to remain professional and calm, but this was different. This was her child walking knowingly into danger. I hate this, she said softly. I hate that you have to be so brave, that you have to think about these things. You should be worrying about school and friends and growing up, not assassination plots and galactic conspiracies. Taeyang reached across the table and took Hana's hand. The clawed fingers were gentle despite their strength. You gave me a life when I should have died. You gave me love when I should have known only pain. You showed me that the galaxy can be better than it is. Now let me help make that better galaxy real. The room fell silent. Outside, dawn was breaking over Geneva. In 2 weeks, they would travel to Concordia Prime Station. They would attend the Peace Summit. They would walk into a trap with their eyes open, betting everything on their ability to survive and expose the truth. Byung-ho began outlining the security preparations. Hidden cameras throughout the station. Backup teams positioned in every corridor. Weapons concealed in diplomatic cases. Communication systems that could broadcast to every species simultaneously. They would need to coordinate with Krial, who would provide the evidence of Vraketh military involvement. Timing would be critical. One mistake could mean death. That night, Daewon found Taeyang in the garden behind their residence. The child sat on a bench looking up at the stars. So many stars, so many worlds, so much diversity and wonder, and also so much fear and hatred. Do you ever regret that I found you? Daewon asked, sitting beside the child. Taeyang was quiet for a moment. Never. My biological family left me to die alone in the cold. You gave me warmth. They saw weakness. You saw potential. They discarded me. You treasured me. Even knowing what it would cost, knowing the battles we would face, I would not change anything. The child leaned against Daewon's shoulder. You taught me something important. That family is not about biology or species. It is about choice, about love, about standing together when everything tries to tear you apart. Whatever happens at that summit, whatever the outcome, I want you to know that I am grateful. I am proud to be your child. Daewon wrapped an arm around Tai Yang, careful of the scales and spines. I am proud of you too, more than you will ever know. They sat together in the darkness, looking at the stars. In 2 weeks, they would face the conspiracy. They would confront those who wanted them dead. They would risk everything for a chance to change the galaxy. But in this moment, they were simply a father and child, sharing the quiet peace of a garden at night. Tomorrow would bring preparation and planning. The day after would bring training and coordination. The weeks ahead would bring danger and uncertainty. Tonight, they had each other. And sometimes that was enough.